Look at my hair. I look like I'm a bum.
Well, we're just cooking alive in here too. You know?
Yeah, we're just a little blue today. That's okay. There we look fine.
Oh, in case the TV.
On YouTube.
Hello.
Hello, YouTube.
Let me just.
We are live on Facebook.
Hello.
We are running just a little bit behind today, just a little bit.
Brian decided to tamper with stuff today.
And roll that intro. You ready?
I suppose.
Oh.
I'm just trying to get up the chats.
I thought I was going to see a little more enthusiasm.
Well, okay, let's run that intro.
I like to hear. You're live.
Hi, everybody.
Who are you?
I'm that guy who shows up every week.
Point to the bottom of the screen. That guy.
That's me. That's me. That's me. Wow, what a day we're having already. What's going on there?
Oh, low quality. Beautiful.
Oh.
All the way down to 420.
Wow. Thanks, Facebook.
Hey, everyone taking off the 4th of July. Stop watching Netflix. We need the bandwidth.
Yeah, we need the bandwidth. That's right.
Our pipes are a little tight up here.
Yeah, so I'm Richard Cleveland. I'm a little distracted. I'm sorry. This is Bryan Baker. You guys have seen him before. He's been on the show before. And I'm trying to find our feed on YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. You're making my life so much easier.
We got Derek. We got Emilio. Wow, he's 3D.
I see Tim Barth. I see Lance King. And I don't see my...
Mark Baker's there.
Mark Baker's here.
Tim and Lance are on Facebook.
We're not recommended to watch ourselves.
I know it
How
doesn't.
will I, deal with my narcissistic nature like this? You know?
Nobody. Yeah. You're probably wondering why Brian's here.
I took the day off, and he wouldn't kick me out of the studio, so.
And he brought coffee.
I did.
So it's coffee with Rich, as you guys know.
I just forgot we were recording. I just brought him coffee. So.
Yeah, you know. So we're going to talk about a few things today. We're going to talk a little bit about what happened with Creality. We're also going to talk a little bit about this gal over here. Not that one, but this one. And what else do you want to talk about today?
Let's talk about the Ender 3. Big news in the Ender 3 world.
That's exactly where we're going to go. That's a good segue. Let's go into that.
Awesome.
So, in the wonderful world of 3D printing, Creality, if you haven't seen yet, either on our Facebook page or on any of the news outlets that cover 3D printing, Creality released all of the files for the Ender 3 just the last couple of days. Naomi Wu, the sexy cyborg, went online yesterday, or was it the day before yesterday?
We've been getting posts for about 5 days, and yesterday we actually got the GitHub link, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
Even though the files were uploaded about 3 days ago. So, but the neat thing was, not only did we get the Marlin source code, we got a compiled one for users that contains thermal runaway protection, supposedly.
That's right.
And in addition, we got the mechanical drawings, the electrical drawings, and the specifications. You could basically start manufacturing these by yourself tomorrow. And this, I think, is associated with this OSHWA certification that Creality has simultaneously achieved, which is basically an open source certification.
You know, you're right about that, and you touched on a note there where you were saying that anybody could really make their own Ender 3.
Yes.
And that is something that's been coveted in China with Chinese manufacturers for years. They never wanted to release anything out to the public because of fear of copywriting. And it makes a ton of sense. I mean, for the most part, we didn't care if they released the drawings, the CAD files, or any of that. All we wanted was source code so that we could play with the source code a little bit as tinkerers and people who, love to 3D print. Now, yes, they run the risk of having people copy the machine, and no doubt is somebody going to come along and they're going to take all of those drawings and they're going to make it their own. They're going to slap their own label on it and call it whatever they want. However, you know a knockoff when you see a knockoff. And that seems to be the biggest thing out of China, is if you've got a knockoff, you know it's a knockoff. Look at the Hicktops, look at the A-Nets, look at, you know, the TiVos of the world. They're knockoffs of somebody else's stuff. Wanhao does the same thing. That thing right back here, which is the D6, is a knockoff of the Zortrax M200.
Right. And the CR20 is looking a lot like the Duplicator i9, if I recall. I mean, they all kind of borrow a little bit from each other, but you know what? I consider it as a win for consumers at the end of the day. Yes,
yeah, I
there will
do
be
too.
one. You know, it's more so the counterfeit. I do not want to buy something labeled as a Creality CR10 if it's not from Creality. But if they reference the design, if they make improvements, or if they make it a little bit cheaper, that's a net win for me as a consumer.
I agree. I agree 100% on that. So now I can see everybody's chat. Thank you.
Look at all our friends today. Thank you for tuning in and not closing the window this moment you saw me. I appreciate it.
Comment from Derek on YouTube.
Comment from Derek on YouTube. Derek Matthews?
Yep.
I think it's very funny them doing that as they copy other things and release it. That's true. Their line of 3D printers is, I think, an amalgamation of other designs. From everything I've seen on their website, all of their printers are kind of an amalgamation of one or two or three designs of other people's work, which they're not directly ripping people off, but they are acknowledging the pedigree of design that came before them. And I think Creality, and I know I'm a Creality card-carrying, flag-waving person because I love the machine so much, but the company hasn't always been great, let's face it, but the machines just work. Right out of the box, I have two CR10s, they just work.
And you know, let's talk about the CR10 just for a moment, because it's the one printer that's probably had about a year and a half of revisions where they took some steps forward. The CR10S had some major upgrades on the underside, but it was integrating all the community feedback, and that's why it's a good printer. You know, you don't make a good printer by releasing a new random version every single year. In fact, the CR10S that you buy today, you can take the original CR10 and for a minimal cost upgrade it to the CR10S equivalent at this stage, and that's great. You know, it's good not to feel obsolete in this rapidly expanding industry.
But let's now talk where they're falling down, and I gotta say they're falling down on the accessories.
Absolutely.
And a great example of that is the new sensor that I showed off to you guys last week. We just got them in here at Spool 3D. That sensor, what they don't tell you in the instructions, I don't know if it's just the board inside that has the two wires reversed or what it is, but when you get those, there's a great big problem of them not working properly because they're going in the wrong direction.
So if everyone's interested in a little tiny education lesson of the day, here's your fun one. So with the module, the way it works is it's an industrial sensor. Realistically, it's designed for actually a higher voltage than what we're running, but it works in that area. And there's a little chip in there that's designed to bring it down to a discrete voltage that the CR10 would be a little happier with. And that little switch is a one-directional diode. And so if it was the CR10, the way it's wired, if you have a limit switch for your Z, it doesn't matter which way you wire it because a switch is a switch. It can flow both directions.
Right.
But with the diode configuration, it only flows in one direction when it's energized in this case. And the way that they manufactured this, unfortunately, is it's flipped backwards for that diode. So you'll plug it in, you'll see the light flipping on top of the sensor, but you won't actually get an electrical signal switching inside the board. And that's honestly the one tiny hurdle amongst several hurdles with the sensor, namely because it comes with zero documentation. And in fact, it wasn't until I did some sleuthing that I found Creality released a new hexadecimal source file for the printer to upgrade it with the functionality. And there's not even any documentation on that. So, you know, it's great that it's cheaper. I appreciate that, but it took a lot more than what my cost savings were to get it working the first time.
But now that it's working, it works flawless.
It does, and Unfortunately, though, it was a result of me doing a lot of fine-tuning to dial that in. You know, and this is where I've talked about TH3D before, is that you're paying for convenience and support. You're not paying for a super expensive product. And so bear that in mind. I mean, if you have bought the Creality sensor and you're having some struggles, post it in the group, and I'll be happy to walk you through it. It's actually not, it's just a small wiring change to flip 2 wires, and then you're golden to go. And then it's just firmware tuning, and I can confirm it works great with Marlin 2.0 on the CR10.
Yeah, because you've upgraded your CR10 to 2.0, right?
I have. I've been playing with it because I was curious to see, outside of the electrical changes, how to make it work. And truth be told, it's an excellent release. I hope it goes stable soon, because it's going to make configuration for you as an end user way easier than it currently is.
So, you know, at the end of the day, they're accessory packs now, with the exception of their upgrade for the CR10 to make it a CR10S, the extension cables that you can buy if you want to put them into an enclosure. Those are great products. They work great. Now they're releasing the little knobs, or the bigger knobs, I should say, for adjusting the bed. They're coming out. They're actually on the Ender 3. And the ones that are on the Ender 3 are now going to be available. And I think you can buy them right now through the Creality store on their website. They're $4 American. You can print them off.
Which is not bad, because I made the mistake of printing those in transparent the first time. So I can't read the numbers on them. I'm just guessing. That's why I bought the sensor, because I'm too lazy to figure it out. But if you've seen what they've done with the Ender 3 and seen these improvements, it's definitely, you know, it's something that should be integrated at the factory for CR10s. And unfortunately, what you're going to see is, as they come out with these new revisions and fixes, a lot of retailers are going to have previous stock. So if they do decide to change their base model, and I think that's why they're releasing them as paid accessory packs, where rather than changing the whole printer, is to make sure if you buy a Creality printer from whoever you choose, or, you know, in our case, Spool 3D, please buy from Spool 3D.
Yes, we'll talk more about them near the end of the show.
You know, if you buy them from them, you're going to get the exact same one than if you bought straight from Creality today. So it's again a win-win for consumers, and they're not mandatory upgrades. It'll still work fine out of the box. It's just quality of life improvements.
You know, that's actually a really good point, because when you look at the CR10 and the Ender 3, they come with that Bowden tube. And to make your machine better, it doesn't even make it better, it just makes it smoother. I replaced one of mine with the Capricorn XL tubing, or the XS tubing, pardon me. And to be perfectly honest with you, it works great. It doesn't, I run that thing at, you know, 240 degrees, and that thing just stays intact. So if there's any kind of accessory upgrade, and you know I hate that word upgrade. If there's any kind of accessory that you should maybe think about, it's getting some Capricorn tubing to replace the stock tubing that comes with it. Now, the other thing that I've done to my CR10, onto one of them recently, is, you guys have heard me talk about these before. These are the stepper dampeners, is what they are. And I put these on one of my machines, and that thing is so quiet.
It's amazing, actually, how much it dampens it, because that's really the issue. The sound that you're hearing is vibration, abnormal vibration.
What it is.
And so this thing, I mean, it's 2 pieces of metal and a little bit of rubber to dampen it in between. But the thing about these is you can do it in 5 minutes. You remove 4 screws and plunk it in. You don't have to open up your control box. You don't have to reprogram anything. It's pretty much foolproof, and there's a boatload of videos on YouTube if you're uncomfortable trying to figure it out.
I agree with you. You know, there's so much out there now. The Creality user group, not only for the CR10, but for the Ender 3 and all of the other products, the Ender 2. The Ender 2 to me was kind of a little bit of a failure on their part, but I think they should have just went to the Ender 3. Now they've got the X coming out, which is the dual head or the dual extruder version, which we'll be getting here in the shop at some point in time. And then they've got the CR20. Now, for all of those guys that are interested in the CR20, be aware that it's not the same bed size as the CR10. It's a smaller bed size, smaller build volume. It's 220 by or 230 by 230 by 250.
I think what I saw is it is an Ender 3 with a complete frame.
Yeah.
And the control board is integrated underneath the frame. So
Right.
it's a nice consolidated unit. I don't think it has dual Z. That's the...
It does not have dual Z, but at the same time, it has a beautiful touchscreen display on it.
It really does, yeah. And
So you're trading one for the other. Do you buy an Ender 3 or do you buy a CR20? Personally, buy an Ender 3.
oh yeah. And to be honest, you look at it, to be honest, the Ender 3 has the exact same hot end, I think, as the CR10.
Yep.
All these parts are interchangeable, so really,
Exactly.
the Ender 3 and actually, you know, happy 4th of July here, you guys are getting 15% off this week if you buy direct from Creality, so I think I saw it for $205 US. It's so incredibly cheap. I mean, the Ender 3 tempted me to buy 2 of them for less than I paid for my CR10.
Wow,
Right.
are we ever getting a crappy stream over on YouTube?
Well, yeah, it's been
Oh, is it?
no resolution whatsoever.
Yeah, I apologize for the crappy stream on YouTube.
As a famous politician once said, the internet, it's not a big truck, it's a series of tubes, and tubes are clogged, so
That's true. That's very, very true.
that's okay. It smoothens out my otherwise ruffled skin here, so
Yeah, there you
I'm
go.
okay with low quality today.
You don't see all my wrinkles. So Creality, on that note, Creality is a company that you should be watching if you haven't got a Creality product yet. I'm going to wave the Creality Chinese flag and say go ahead and look at Creality's website, look at Spool 3D's website for what they have in stock and what they're bringing in. That is going to be a huge bonus. By the way, and I didn't say this earlier today, or I might have said it earlier in a post today, I'm not sure, but happy 4th of July to all of our American viewers and friends. Hopefully you guys are enjoying some good tailgating, some good barbecue, and lots of beer.
At this time of day, they better be, because it's the middle of the work week. It's probably
Yeah.
the cruelest 4th of July you've had in ages. You know,
See,
so-
but that's the thing, when they get the 4th of July in the middle of the week, you don't see them again until Monday.
no, I mean,
So enjoy the time off. So here on the table we've got a couple of ladies. This is my lady. This was my lady. She was a little too short for me, so I gave her to Frank because he's a little short.
oh,
Oh, I'm gonna.
we're getting the silent treatment
Yeah,
over here. If you
yeah.
can hear the keyboard mashing, it's just hate posts. You know, it's,
I'm working.
So Frank painted this up. This was the original one that you guys kept seeing in earlier episodes of the first layer. And she was sitting on the shelf always behind me. So I gave her to Frank one day. I said, here, go home, take her home and do what you want with her and fix her up or belt her down or, you know, whatever you want to do. So he actually painted her this week. And I got to say, he did a pretty damn good job. We are going to go over a little bit of skin detail with him. We're going to teach him a little bit more about skin.
how many bottles of XTC did you use on her?
None.
About 1/8 of an ounce.
1/8 of an ounce.
You XTC'd her?
Yeah, her hair especially.
Oh, her hair,
Her
okay.
hair, the neck had a huge gap in it. You know, it had
Yeah, yeah.
a huge, terrible gap
Yeah.
in it. So I did her hair. I did here on her chest as far
Right.
down as I could, and her legs.
So, let me see if I can switch to the upper camera here.
So there's
Yeah,
no
oh,
layer.
that is so, that's because we don't have that light
There's
on.
almost 0 layer lines on that monitor.
So, she's beautiful. You've seen the pictures on Facebook. Frank did a really nice job on her. Gave her those really nice kind of cartoon eyes. I love
I
that.
love the eyes. Honestly, Frank, you're saying that's your first attempt at it? Man, that was, I'm impressed.
He did good. He did
I'm
really
coming
good.
up, doing a model soon with eyes, and that's the one thing is I swear I've got the hands of a 70-year-old man with Parkinson's. I feel like it's just blurry beyond belief.
I used to draw a lot of cartoons.
When it comes to painting figures like this, I mean, I've done millions of eyes,
Oh, yes.
and not even at that scale, at a much, much smaller scale. When I used to work for Games Workshop, we had to paint miniatures every day, a brand new miniature every day we had to paint one.
Oh, wow.
And that would go in the display case, and your name would go under it, and these are the models that you painted, sort of thing. And let me tell you, the eyes on those things are pretty damn small.
Oh, yeah.
They're about the size of her fingernail.
Yikes.
Pretty small, yeah. And I'm half blind in one eye and can't see out the other anyway. So I use a pair of magnifiers that I wear when I'm painting and I'm doing detail. And as I've gotten older, here's the strange thing, as I got older, I've had to use them more, because now I'm finding when I'm cleaning a model, I have to get in there and I put them down so I can see the really fine areas that I'd never see.
Maybe you need a new prescription, just say.
I just got these.
Maybe you need a new eye doctor.
Maybe I need a new eye doctor. Maybe. Matthew says his dad passed away from Parkinson's. I'm so sorry to hear that.
I'm sorry.
It is no joke, and we apologize if you were offended by that. Yeah, video quality on Facebook is much better. It is much better. I don't know why it's looking so crappy over there on...
YouTube sucks sometimes.
There you go. Yeah, he did actually hand paint her, where I do a mixture. I do airbrushing and I do hand painting. On Wonder Woman that you see on the other side of the table, she's just got her base coat on. And I've said this, you know, probably 50 times already, how I mix my base coat. I take an equal part of raw sienna, burnt sienna, and white. I mix them all together, and that becomes my base coat. Thin it down, I'll throw it through my airbrush. And when I'm doing something this large, believe me, your benefit of having an airbrush to do that. I mean, you could certainly brush paint the whole thing, but
it lays down so differently.
It does.
It really does.
It's a lot flatter when you lay down an airbrush as opposed to a brush. But I got to tell you, it is. He did a wonderful job on this one, and we are going to. I'm going to do more on painting. Maybe not full-length tutorials like I'm doing for Patreon, but you guys will see more painting coming up in the very near future. Let's talk about Cura 3.4.
Oh boy.
Now, I just cut a model today for the Ryan Duplicator i3, and I'll tell you, it looked great in the slice. I did everything that I normally do in Simplify 3D, but it didn't lay down the raft very well, and believe me when I tell you that when it started laying down the model on the raft, it looked like Swiss cheese. It was really, really bad.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out what they're setting as defaults on Cura 3.4, because I noticed the other night too that at least on mine, acceleration and jerk were turned on by default and hidden. And for those of you who don't know, your firmware has actually built-in defaults usually, and if you don't set those, it uses those. That's usually why a lot of prints come out quite nice. If you start overriding those, now you're starting to change what the machine parameters are designed for. You're going to get a lot more vibration and shaking. And Cura 3.4 especially has a really high threshold set. It's amazing how high it is.
Yeah, they got the jerk set at 20 millimeters.
20 millimeters and the acceleration at 3,000.
3,000, yeah.
And the CR10 firmware by default has an acceleration of 500, I want to say. And jerk, I believe, is 10 on that one.
No, it's 5.
Is it 5?
It is 5,
it's even lower. So you're going 6 times faster on your speed ups, and where you'll see is on the small details, your printer is going to almost vibrate off your table. So be sure to search it up. I don't know if we can even pull it up on the computer and show you how to find it.
Are there general settings you can use for most printers, just like a start off point? Like good settings for jerk and acceleration?
To be honest, you probably should just leave them turned off by default.
Yeah, I would.
And allow your printer to just...
And allow your printer to do it. Sometimes you'll get a printer, and the Winehouse is a great example of that. The jerk settings on that were set fairly high as well. I think they were set, they come stock at 20.
Right.
So I bumped mine down to 5 on this one, which is now starting to give me beautiful prints. And I brought the actual acceleration down to 800. 800 on this guy. And yeah, it still gets a little bit of artifacting. I know I could clean that up if I added some TL smoothers to it, which is going to be something we're going to do with this guy fairly soon. We're going to add TL smoothers on all 4 motors.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to do it on the X, Y, Z, and the extruder motor. And from all the documentation I've been reading lately about TL smoothers, it is, what it does for the extruder especially, is it helps to get rid of salmon skinning and any of those extra artifacts
Right.
that you might find from the movement of the X and the Y on a true Cartesian machine. So, with smoothers both on the X and Y and on the Z, I mean, do I really need them on the Z? I don't think so.
Well, it can't hurt.
It can't hurt.
If we talk about these for a moment, the reason they're so cheap is because of how electrically simple they are.
Yeah.
But the general consensus is they take out the little blips in your signal and smooth it out. Now, as a result of the technology of which it uses, it should drop the voltage going to the motor slightly. So if you're having issues, it could be a result of motor undercurrent with those. But
That's
otherwise, they're pretty much plug and play. So
Yeah.
hey, if it doesn't work, just unplug it. Put back in your straight motor. You don't start reconfiguring things.
Well, you're not even taking out the motor. What TL smoothers do is they go between the actual board and the motor.
That's correct, yes.
So they're just a little tiny circuit board with a plug on one side and a plug on the other side. And what it does is it takes that signal, that electrical signal that's coming off the stepper, which is on your main motherboard, smoothing that signal out, or giving it a better wave sign, I should say.
Yes.
A smoother wave sign, and then it's sending it to the motor. So the motor is interpreting that smoother wave sign as a clean signal.
Correct. It smooths it out, similar to a power conditioner. If
Yeah.
you've ever bought something for your home theater and it's got a fancy display on the front and charges you $400, it's just smoothing things out so that little spikes aren't passed over to the power supply.
Right.
And the same applies to a motor. In this case, it's just the spikes are noise in your case, so it's a convenience. It just basically reduces your overall noise threshold, and
Yeah.
again, it's worth a shot. I mean, the only downside with them, the ones I bought so far, is they don't plug in line on the motor side for the Creality printers. So you're going to have to open up your control box to plug in at the control box level. Apart from that, it's really under an hour installation. So.
Yeah, it's like 2 minutes you plug them in. And you don't have to configure your firmware to use these. You just put them on there and away you go.
Correct.
Let's see, do we have any more questions?
Lots of comments, no questions.
Lots of comments, no
Well,
questions.
throw your questions out, folks.
Today's the day to throw your questions out for sure. I got a better view now here, you see?
That does look better.
I
Yeah.
upped the quality. It was sitting down at the lowest quality for whatever reason.
Still,
Yeah, if you just bring your mouse up there and see the cogwheel.
right here.
No, the cogwheel that comes
Video.
up in the video. Yeah, over.
Oh.
There, right there.
And-
Auto. Yeah,
Oh,
jump
shit,
that.
doggo, it's at 144p.
Yeah, crank that
Yeah.
up to
At
1080p.
least 720,
Yeah,
not
something. Why not, right?
There you go. Now that looks better.
So if it defaults at a lower setting, it'll just stay there.
It will
It
all
will.
the time.
Yeah. And why it's defaulting to a lower setting, I don't know.
YouTube's stupid.
I think they're pretty sure our internet still is projected over barbed wire.
Yeah, maybe. We are in a different country. If Trump has his way, and I'm sorry, I'm not a Trump fan.
Nobody is.
As long as they don't put a tariff on the pipes, I'm good.
Listen,
Like,
all of the U.S. is going to become Escape from the U.S., not Escape from New York.
you know what? I'm okay with a third sequel. Can we get Kurt Russell?
I think he's a little old.
He'll have to do.
Speaking of which, they're actually going to be remaking that movie, Escape
no.
from New York.
Oh,
Yeah,
boy.
yeah. So, and they're redoing The Little Mermaid.
I love rebooting things.
We're getting off topic. but-
We could go for hours about this.
Yeah.
Emilio's got a question there.
Emilio. Will there be a contest around your head scan? Yes, there will be a contest around my head scan, and I'll tell you what I'm going to do for that contest. And I know Emilio has already showed off what he's done with my head scan.
Oh, has he?
He showed it off to one person, and she won't tell me anything.
Oh, Jess.
She just keeps laughing.
Is she gonna blab?
No, she's not. She won't blab. She won't say anything.
Smart girl.
She just keeps teasing me about it. But
She's not
yes.
up to date. She must be working.
So here's the deal. When you guys do something with my head, I think we should cut it off at the end of July.
I think that's a fair time.
Yeah,
There's
it's
plenty of time for you to order your summer printer.
Yep. So at the end of July, I'm going to look at all of the entries, and then I'm going to pick one. And the person that I pick, out of all of the entries that came in, will receive a hand-painted statue from me.
Oh.
Does that sound like a good prize?
Yeah.
Give me a thumbs up if you like that prize. I will hand paint a statue for your living room, and I will sign the bottom.
Awesome. Vaughn London on YouTube has a question.
Vaughn London, is there any specific way the wires must be connected if you don't have those connectors?
Truthfully, no, as long as you get the 8 diode version, because it's designed to flow both ways.
Yeah.
But we'll probably eventually do an episode about the stepper motor fundamentals.
Yeah, we are.
But basically, a motor has 6 contacts in total, and depending on which ones you connect to, it determines your stepping on the motor.
Correct.
And so these come by default with 4 wires in, 4 wires out. On the actual motor side, the most important part is make sure that they're hooked up the correct way on both sides. Otherwise, your motors are going to travel backwards.
Oh.
Yes, you don't want them traveling backwards.
And you can flip it in firmware, but just wire it right the first time. Just Sharpie it, do something.
Now, Mark Baker has a question over on YouTube. He's asking, how long does it take on average for the CR10-5 or the S5 bed to heat to 60? That's a good question. I haven't tested it, but my understanding is it should only take no more than a couple of minutes.
So as
4 or 5 minutes is the average I'm hearing.
As a reference, I've found with bed leveling, my regular CR10S takes about, I'm going to say 6 to 7 minutes. So considering that bed is about 20% larger, take that. If it's heating up, if it's taking longer than 10 minutes for your overall preheat process, it doesn't hurt to use the preheat option in the firmware to give it a jump start while you're setting up your print files.
There you go.
And you know, as much as I complain about heat up times, if it takes 10 minutes to set up a job that's going to take 48 hours, I think that's an okay sacrifice.
Morgan Pierce asking, do you sell the 8 diode version at Spool 3D? Yes. We have. That's all we have is the 8 diode version.
I didn't even know there was a 4 diode until you had mentioned it, so I try to clarify that because bad things happen when, well, actually nothing happens if you hook it up.
Trevor D's asking, do you guys ever insulate your beds with pipe tape? Pipe tape?
Never ever heard of that. I've been hunting for over.
Are you talking about the aluminum tape that you can get for ducting, which is actually real duct tape? Because if that's what you're...
I think even leading into it,
yeah.
Most beds, especially the CR10S, actually do come pre-insulated on the bottom side. I do have. So
does the S4 and S5.
Oh, it does. Okay.
Yeah.
I do have a smaller printer that did not have insulation on the bottom side, and it does take a long, long time to heat up because it is seeping heat throughout the bottom.
Yeah.
Just bear in mind that you know, although the traces are all insulated on the bottom of your bed, the actual solder points and where the thermistor exists are exposed. So as long as you even cover it in Kapton tape before applying something like that, it will help insulate it a little better and keep it warm during the process.
What I have found is a great insulator. If you are using a smaller bed, get yourself a pack of cork, like they're cork tiles from the dollar store, and if you cut it to match your bed, you can actually then put that on the bottom and use Kapton tape around it to keep that heat going straight up.
You're not going to glue it straight to the bed, though.
No, you're not going to glue it to the bed. You're just going to tape it to the bed by running it all around the edge.
And make sure you know what kind of bed you have, because I recently did discover that TiVo does run on a 120 volts AC bed, which from an electrical safety standpoint, I'm not too comfortable with, especially with users putting something against that surface. So find out what kind of bed you have, find out what other users have done, but you know, it was engineered and tested without it, so unless, outside the convenience, unless you're having bed heating issues where the heating's failed, insulating it might just be covering up another issue. You might just have to put a new bed on.
Yeah, that is one of the ways. So we're hearing here something about, it's insulated duct tape is what it is.
Right.
Pipe tape can't handle high temps. This tape is designed for high temps, helps me to get to 110 easy. Take a look at the D9, Richard, what it has. We don't have, oh yes, I do have a D9. There's one actually out on the floor.
Yes.
And I believe that bed is insulated from the bottom? I could be wrong. Frank's going to check right now to see if it's insulated.
Now, insulation will help you reach those higher temperatures. Honestly, though, I still haven't had a material that I've had to go past 80. I mean, there might be certain ones. I'm not doing nylon yet or anything like that. But at that point, you're also looking into enclosures to keep your actual internal temps up. It's just a lot of juice and a lot of heat to be putting across a single surface. So be smart about insulation.
The D9's right beside the CR10. It's a big monster beside the CR10. German printing nerd Don says it is insulated.
And that makes sense. They are starting to go for that because it's very efficient.
Light foam.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just really light, and it's in sections. It doesn't cover the whole ball.
Oh, it's just in pads, eh?
It's in pads. Yeah.
I mean,
pads, okay.
Bear in mind these companies, they engineer this for a reason. So the moment you start messing with those, you're starting to mess with the thermal designs of it, and inherently with these heating beds, they're designed to heat more in the center going outwards. So if you start messing around with that, you might start having adhesion issues, you might have warp. At least my opinion is, don't mess with it if it works.
Exactly. Now, and that goes back to, you guys know that I'm a huge advocate for not upgrading your machine. And yesterday was a great example. I was talking with somebody online who was having an issue with his printing. And what is happening is he's got 2 blowers set up on his machine. And what they're doing is they're blowing down onto the hot end. You never, ever need 2 blowers blowing on your hot end. If you've got 2 blowers, you're blowing twice as much air on the hot end. So you run the risk of several things happening. One, you run the risk of the heating block cooling down too fast, causing a jam, and then under extrusion.
Yes.
Secondly, if it's blowing down onto the parts, you're running the risk of those parts or those layers not sticking to the layer underneath because that plastic is already cooled when it hits that layer underneath that it's trying to stick to. So if you are going to do any types of upgrades like that, keep in mind that there might be some really frickin' cool designs out there, but they don't all work. And everybody wants to be like Mike, I'm going to say. Or you want to keep up with the Joneses. And this is where, you know, the 3D printing industry as a whole has gotten into trouble because hobbyists at the beginner and intermediate levels that don't have the knowledge base or experience with printing that somebody like you or I or even Frank has, can run into those issues without even realizing, and then they go, oh, well, why am I getting all this? I've changed this and I've changed that, and it goes down to what you've added to your machine and how cool you've tried to make it look.
And you know what? Sometimes you're over-engineering the solution. So
exactly.
The blowers, for example, everyone loves to install blowers, but think about what it's doing. It's designed to cool down the filament as it hits the bed. Nothing's stopping you from cooling down your extruder temperature and slowing it down a little bit. Yep. That will give you the same thing. It's just, blowers really are if you want to run at high speeds, and we're all impatient. I know I am.
Ain't broke, don't fix it.
You know.
Exactly. It ain't broke, don't fix it.
I can tell you the printers run fine if you leave it for 7 days, so don't rush it. Just get it right the first time. Yeah,
and this way you're not going to waste plastic either, and that, you know, for us, it's $29 a roll.
Oh, yeah, it's pricey up here.
Which is not horrible. I mean, that's a kilogram roll.
It is. Oh, yeah, you get a lot out of it. But when you're throwing out, you know, 3 times the volume of what you expected on that single model, because it's not easy to splice ones back together sometimes when they fail. So
because you gotta figure out where it failed, how much of the model actually printed, try and take that into Mesh Mixer, cut the model so you can print the rest of it, and then glue it together. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
And all the whole time, hope you got it right.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Now, the other thing that I've run across and I know we're running over time today, but who cares? It's Wednesday. It's 4th of July. It's Independence Day. So we're going to be independent and go a little longer today.
There we go.
One of the things I've noticed with models as of late is, and I'll use Wonder Woman as an example, when guys are designing models, they're beautiful designers out there, and there's beautiful models. But what they don't understand, some of them, is how a model relates to a 3D printer. And we're going to use the leg on Wonder Woman as an example. I've got a model right now that was sent to me, and the boot portion here, actually when you look at the model, the actual design goes into the foot, and then there's a space behind it. Then it comes up, and there's a banding in the boot, and that banding is a solid banding. So what's happening when you try and print something like that out is the slicers get confused because they don't know where the infill should be, because it looks like to them it's a solid model. So it'll put sporadic infill in, and that's part of being watertight. Now, a model may look beautiful in 3D space, but that doesn't always mean it's going to translate well into the real world to be able to print it off. So when you're designing your models, be sure that you take them into something like Mesh Mixer, make them a solid, and look through that solid to see where you've got any other errors. Then you can correct those errors and move on to producing beautiful 3D prints.
What happens if you don't make it a solid first?
It'll try and guess which one has priority, and
Yeah.
it'll leave a hole where the two meshes cross.
Yeah.
If you're uncomfortable with Mesh Mixer, honestly, my go-to now, the first thing when I download an STL, is I load it into Windows 10's built-in 3D Builder. It offers me the option to repair the mesh, and then I just export it again, and 95% of the time, that fixes every single slicing issue that Cura can't figure out, that even Simplify 3D can't figure out. So,
It's a
Yeah.
pretty well-kept secret, that software.
it really is. You know what? It came out with the Windows 10 Creators Update, I want to say 2 Octobers ago.
Yeah, it's
And there
about 2 years old. Yeah.
and it was a very undocumented piece of software, but if you accidentally double-click on an STL in Windows 10, it'll probably open in there anyways.
Yeah, I've done it many times.
It's a great thing for repair, and actually it's surprisingly powerful if you just want to take a logo or an image and just extrude it and put a 3D model in. So definitely give it a look. If it should actually be pre-installed on your computer, you just may not know it's there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those apps you never look at.
Yeah, it's one of those apps you never look at. Exactly, Frank. I think that, you know, I've got some beautiful models and I want to make them into three-dimensional objects. But I'm at the stage now where I'm having to clean up, and I'm not a 3D designer by any stretch of the imagination. Give me a pencil and a piece of paper and a ruler and I can design you a house. Try and get me to do that in 3D space? No. I just can't wrap my head around 3D space for whatever reason, but I can build anything.
Oh yeah, and you know what? It's never been easier than it has been now to create a 3D model.
Yeah.
And on the engineering side, honestly, there are some amazing products out there. But when it comes to the creative stuff that Emilio's doing here, that Sanix is doing,
Yeah.
it blows me away, that talent that has been hidden behind the scenes for so many decades. And now we're starting to see these talented modelers come out, where as soon as you remove the animation aspect, there's a lot more detail they can integrate into these models.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that we can just dump it on a printer and get that same detail is just, it's incredible.
Yeah.
You know, we appreciate the community's effort in designing these models, because decades ago you'd pay tens of thousands of dollars. You know, we're still trying to find Irwin molds of toys in the early 2000s,
Yeah.
and just imagine how much one of those cost for a single one. So,
Hey, I'm still looking for figures for my 40th anniversary Star Wars collection.
oh boy.
I'm missing 2 from Series 1, if anybody knows where I can get them. I'm missing Han Solo and R2-D2. Ooh. Those are the 2 hardest ones to find in Series 1. I got everybody else. But that being said, yeah, one thing I want to touch on with designers of STLs and designers who are making these wonderful 3D models like Emilio Vitt and Julio and Malik or Sergio, don't be afraid of the price they're asking for some of their models, because at the end of the day, it takes skill, it takes time, and it takes effort to create a beautiful piece of work like Wonder Woman. And if they're only charging $20 or $30 for that model, it's worth every penny.
I'm saying this in
And
fear.
that's cheap.
Yeah, in fear of us getting bit back for this, raise your prices. Holy smokes, you know, because that is amazingly cheap. And, you know, if if you feel like that is a little expensive, go take a trip over to Games Workshop or to EB Games in Canada, GameStop in the US, and look how much they're charging for a single figure that clearly was hand painted. You're looking at $400 or $500
easily.
Go online and try to just pick a model and try to get it 3D printed by somebody else.
Oh, it's amazing.
Just have them. It's ridiculous how much.
So, when you guys are searching out your models, please take into consideration that the people who design these models, even on Thingiverse, whenever you download something, it says tip me. There's a little window that opens up and asks you if you want to tip the person. If you love the model, you've used the model, it worked out for you, tip the designer. I mean, it really goes a long way for the faith of us guys that are printers and not designers like myself to encourage these guys to put out brand new material. And I really hope you guys take this to heart when you're looking for models, and don't be afraid to pay $20 or $30 for a model, because they're worth every penny. Every penny.
As long as you can print it properly, like me, you know, you got to spend your time with it. But
you do.
You know what? I could go through 4 or 5 spools, and I would still have it cheaper than if I had bought it in the store. And it's more unique, because ironically, we are still a small community out there for 3D printers.
Absolutely.
I've seen this traveling around almost around the entire North America. That it's a niche thing still, and it's kind of cool for you to bring a product out and say this was designed by this, and people, the first thing they say is, "You printed that?" You know, and then they'll say, "Where'd you get the model?" And you know, "Can I buy it?" And it's amazing. So you know, by all means, thanks for this amazing work the community has put forward.
Yeah, and we've got some great designers in our community on Facebook, and great designers that watch the show here each and every week. And I can't thank those guys enough for the hard work that they do, guys and gals. And painting, there's another big thing.
Yeah.
It does take a lot of time to paint models. I know, because I've done it for years, and you can tell Wonder Woman is not finished.
It took 3 weeks.
3 weeks to do this one.
3 weeks of work, and you know, you can imagine, even if somebody wants $300 to paint it, they're basically charging minimum wage for their time. So,
really.
Yeah,
they are.
It's a talent, it's an art, and we got to realize that sometimes. You know, outside of the mechanics of the machine, this is all an art.
That's exactly what it. Even when you're downloading stuff for drawer pulls and knobs and gears and things like that you're going to put into your RC cars or your planes, or heck, RC planes.
Oh.
There's a whole community built around 3D printed RC planes. And I got to tell you, those things are beautiful. Don't be afraid. Take the time, slide a couple of bucks to the designer, and really, I can't say that enough, because those guys put out amazing stuff. So, engineering versus design, yes.
Oh yeah, the engineering side. You know, that's
when you were talking about how your skills on design.
It's, you know, I work in the electrical world, industrial automation, so you know, I design a lot of little mechanical things in there. But you know, a lot of time I'm not taking into account the strain relief and all that. But there are guys that are senior engineers that you're getting a product for free that these guys would bill $90, $100 an hour to normally design. So you know, it's not just on the creative side; it's also on the mechanical side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just you're always saving money. That's why we all bought these things, is to do cool things for way cheaper than we could have ever imagined.
And to have unique things.
Absolutely.
Wonder Woman is a great example of that. This is, for anybody that doesn't know, this model is a model from Malik's 3 Design, which is Sergio Malik in our community. He's got his own little website. He puts up new models once every couple weeks. I think the latest one was Lady Deadpool, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think it was Lady Deadpool.
Lady Deadpool.
They're getting more and more detailed.
And as these designers move forward, and I'm going to jump off my soapbox in a second, as these designers get more experience and they hone their craft, so to speak, the quality is getting so much better.
And just so you know, you're not always going to get that quality out of your printer. I mean,
no.
As best as you can with a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, but you're not going to get that detail unless you go to a resin printer or whatnot. But the detail's there, and that's it's impressive just to look at. Sometimes I like to buy an STL just to open it up and look at it and appreciate the detail. Gambody
is a great place to find all kinds of STLs. I bought a few from there. You've bought some.
Yes.
And Gambody's STLs, although they say they're verified to print, they don't tell you how they printed them. And I'm working with one right now that has given me a little bit of trouble, but we'll go through it, and you'll see that model on our Patreon feed as we move forward. Speaking of Patreon, we've got another episode coming this week, later in the week, probably closer to the weekend, where you're actually going to see me start to paint Darkseid. It'll be part 2 on painting Darkseid. We're going to lay down the foundation for his skin color and get things moving in the right direction there. Speaking of Patreon, listen, if you guys aren't a Patreon subscriber and you want to see how I paint from beginning to end, then sign up to Patreon at the $5 level. That's where you'll see all the videos.
This is a friendly reminder for me to up my donation.
Yeah, yeah.
I was cheap, you know. I throw him something, but
he did.
But you know what? It's, you know, anything helps, right?
Everything helps. Right now, we are sitting at. First of all, I never thought I'd have the 18 people that are there now. I thought maybe 2 or 3 at tops, but now we're at 18, and thank you so very much for all of your patronage to what I do. Because at the end of the day, where does that money go? It goes back into the production of this show, whether it be getting supplies like paints and thinners and things like that, or extra lighting or cameras or whatever we need to up the quality of the show to bring you guys the best possible show that we can here on the first layer.
That's why I'm bringing him coffee.
Yeah,
you know, we're having a coffee fund here, but I mean, with that, please do buy him a coffee, because you know.
Yeah, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/thefirstlayer. I don't know if that is. Do we have that lower third? We're at the Buy Me a Coffee.
Oh shoot! I was talking over here. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
That's okay. Frank gets lost sometimes.
I don't want to do. I'm working.
We're just going to keep that up. So yeah, if you guys want to, you can go ahead and buy me a coffee. It's a one-time thing. You don't have to do it all the time, and all that money again goes into the same pool to help things here, get us out to events where we can bring you guys more coverage. Talk to other 3D printers, look at maker spaces, which is something I want to do over the summer. Is I want to get out some of the maker spaces here in Calgary. We've got Fuse 33, we've got Proto Space, and there's one more that I understand here in Calgary, where we can go in and we can take a look at really what is a maker space, how does it relate to this show, and how does it relate to you guys, and is there some ideas there that you can pick up for your own maker space at home, whether you're a 3D printer, a seamstress, a woodworker, a welder, or a combination of all of them. You know, so we want to bring you some of that stuff. I'm scheduling a walkthrough of an art store, which seems kind of weird for this show, right? But I am working with a new company here in Calgary. They've been around for about a year. And they are a beautiful little hole-in-the-wall kind of art store, and you can get just about anything you need from them. And we're going to go and take a little tour, and I'll show you the paints that I buy from this store and the brushes that I use when I'm painting 3D prints. So that's going to be coming up. We've got Jess's build coming up on Friday. I kind of skipped over Patreon real quickly. Jess will be in tomorrow. We're going to be recording her teardown of the ANET A8, and we are going to be rebuilding it as an ANET M8, which means it's going to be going on to 2040 aluminum extrusion frame. So that will be coming up on Friday. Just jumping back to Patreon, if you want to support the show, you can always go to patreon.com/thefirstlayer, and you can see all the different levels that we have there. With that said, I want to thank Spool 3D. We're coming to the end of our time here. We've almost been here for an hour.
Drip on my head this week?
Yes, it is.
Spool3d.ca. They have everything that you need, like I said, from printers to filaments to parts galore. If you want to build your own printer, they've got everything that you need. So check them out today. Print it right, print it with spool3d.ca. I want to thank Bryan for coming in today and bringing me some coffee.
Yeah, Bryan.
Oh, I tried to keep it somewhat Canadian on this day. I
Yeah,
got some Starbucks, but you know.
Or Tim Hortons.
Yeah,
well, Tim's is now owned by a U.S.
I would have
corporation.
said Second Cup, but they're going to be selling marijuana this year. So
Are they really?
They applied for an application. Who would have guessed? So.
Second Cup is going to be selling marijuana.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah. You know, I never thought I'd live to see when marijuana became legal. And of course, I'm not.
Still a few months.
Still a few months, yeah.
Give it.
Are you saying I'm gonna? They want me to die soon so they can take over the show.
Well, if you don't subscribe to my channel, you can still subscribe to his.
There you go. Subscribe. Hit that bell notification button so you get notified every time that we do a brand new episode.
Oh, you're trying to get out of here, but everybody's asking about the dragon all of a sudden.
Oh, the dragon. Okay.
Oh, yes.
I want the dragon. We are going to be doing more on the dragon. We still got some fill work to do on it once we get through the fill work, because you guys saw the basics of how to do the filling of the seams. And we're going to fix some of those spikes that we broke off. Then we're going to bring it back. We're going to show you how we go about cleaning up some of the detail from where we puttied and adding in some of that detail. And then we're going to go ahead and start painting it. And I know you guys want to see that paint job and how I go about painting it. And I'm going to show you how we're going to use an airbrush. We'll probably bring it to my home studio to do there because I've got a little bit more space to paint there. But we are going to get back to the dragon. What's Bryan's channel?
I actually, you know what? I've got just a YouTube channel that's weather time lapses, and I know a few people have enjoyed that. It's a Raspberry Pi that I've left running on my deck for 4 years, so it's going good so far. Just search up Bryan Baker on YouTube, B-R-Y-A-N. You'll be able to find that, and if I eventually do any little clips about 3D printing, it'll probably end up there, or I'll spin it off on a channel. But if you want to see the kind of weather that we go through, it uploads daily at 2 a.m. You can see some of the exciting thunderstorms we go through and why we complement the backup power backup on the CR10s, because power does go out here.
It does. It certainly does. So I want to thank Frank for coming in and running the board today.
Thanks,
and Frank's utilizing some of my software today, so I don't mind. It's one way of paying him.
That's how this community works.
That's right. We barter. So Frank has been on the controls all day, so everybody give Frank a big hand. And let's thank Bryan for coming in today. Bryan, where else can they find you online? I know you're part of our community in the First Layer.
Yeah, you can find me on the First Layer Facebook group. If you look on Twitter there, my handle is xbrav, which is XBRAV. It's a pun on Johnny Bravo that's been going on for about 25 years. So
wow.
It's a little bit dated there, but generally it's catching up on all my weather time lapses. But for now, the best way to reach me will be on the Facebook group. Throw out questions out there and I'll try and do my best.
Especially if you have questions about firmware. This guy is remarkable when it comes to firmware.
I do my best to break it.
Now you have a podcast.
I do. A very vulgar podcast.
Well, it's still a podcast.
It's still a podcast, but if you're into movie reviews and laughing and kind of face-palming, I mean, we're pretty terrible people, but, you know, we try to have a good time there. It's called Flicks X-Raid, and you can find it on Google Play, iTunes, Stitcher, and apparently a whole bunch of other ones. We've got a couple of years of back content, so if you find a movie in there you like, give us a listen, give us a comment. We love the feedback, and we just love to have a good time.
I'll let you guys know when I'm going to go over and give them my opinion.
Oh, we're going to pick a treasure for you.
Oh, I love...
He's probably going to bring the treasures, actually.
I love movies.
He's got some good ones.
I used to do a movie review show.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. And it was a round table, and believe me, it was not safe for work.
Yeah, it took 18 seconds for Google Play to list us as explicit. It wasn't even finished uploading the episode, and it said, nope, we're explicit.
Wow.
Okay, good enough for me. So.
Great, then I can cut loose and just be myself.
Yeah.
All right, with that said, guys, remember that I'm going to be back here with you on Friday for our recorded show, and then Monday we're back, and then Wednesday we're back with another live stream talking about whatever you guys want to talk about. And maybe I'll try and do a hangout sometime on the weekend from my home. Just something impromptu. But we are going to have an official First Layer hangout at the end of last Sunday of July. And that will be for our Patreons. And then if not enough people show up for the Patreons, then we'll open it up to everybody else. But with that said, remember, guys, the First Layer is always your foundation to a great print. Until I see you again, have yourselves a great weekend and enjoy the 4th of July.
Enjoy.